Good evening and welcome to Plain Talk. My name is Christopher Ram. Thank you for joining me for 1 hour of discussion. Again, on this evening, the subject is politics, and to discuss their plans and programs for the future, for transforming Guyana for all, are 3 leaders of the new movement, a grouping of young persons that have established themselves recently and proposed to participate in general and regional elections. But I'll let them talk for themselves. Let me introduce Dr.Gerald Forde, who is on my immediate left, and to his left is Dr.Asha Kisson, and to her left is Dr.Josh Kanhai. Doctors, welcome to Plain Talk.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I think Josh, you've been here before,
Yes, sir, I have.
and you've been here with another political party.
Yes, sir.
We can drop this story. That was the LJP,
Yes, sir, it was.
and
Well, there were some issues. Well, a few to be specific, but let's not basically go into them much. But there were issues which I was not comfortable as a young person coming up into the political arena, and I basically saw that much could have been done better. And to do this, these issues had to be addressed. And when I asked them to address it, it wasn't being addressed. So I was like, I can't handle it, and I would not go forward with such issues continuously happening. So I eventually left for a while. Then eventually these guys came up and we were like, hey, if we don't see changes or we don't fight for change ourselves, who's gonna do it? Are we gonna put our trust and are we gonna put our people's lives and our monies, tax monies, payer monies into these same old hands again? Will we allow that?
I hope you don't have something against old heads as well too.
No. I respect you guys very much, right? But the principles and the morals must be there,
Yeah.
and that's what I respect. Respect is earned, and that's how I see it.
Let me ask you, Dr. Asha, is it coincidental, all 3 of you, you're all medical doctors?
Yes, we are.
Is it coincidental that 3 doctors are leaders of the new movement?
Well, let me make it clear. It's not a doctor's party. It's a
And it's
youth
not doctor politics.
movement, and
You
it's
know, they
not
used to have-
doctor politics.
You had that word around the Caribbean a lot about doctor politics.
It just so happened because we worked together and we were drawn to the similar ideology. That's how we came together, the 3 doctors sitting before you. But we have a mass of young professional economists, people that work in the agricultural sector, forestry, business people. It's a mass movement of young people, not just doctors.
And if I can drop everybody knows it's doctor, so we wouldn't want to say doctor for the rest of the evening. Sorry, Gerald. The link between you and another doctor, Torin Durga, is he the founder of this movement?
Well, Mr. Durga campaigned with the APNO AFC last time,
That's correct.
and his main objective was to bring about changes in the rice sector.
Yes.
All right, he wanted to develop an agricultural development bank, an industrial bank, right, to transform the rice sector, to put the control of the rice sector in the hands of the rice farmers. But he said that after the APNO AFC took power, they disregarded those plans. And he also campaigned a lot on youth issues. And in his opinion, the coalition has failed the youth. So he could not really campaign again with this coalition. We also have the ideology that we should have an agriculture and industrial development bank. We should focus a lot on agriculture. We also believe that youth should be involved in politics and other aspects of social life, and so our ideologies meshed. right?
Mm-hmm.
And we started working together to form the new movement, which we have formed and is in operation right now.
What is in operation?
We-
Josh?
uh,
I don't know anybody.
In addition to what Dr. Forde said, Dr. Durga has been going around trying to look for a third party which he can support with youths and with young people, with professionals who can push this country forward. And he basically, when we met him, he said he's fed up. He's fed up going around to these third parties that are coming up now. And basically, he was the same as me. He was like, we got to do this ourselves and we got to do this now. So that's how we meshed and that's how we started this entire thing. And the movements we're going forward with is going to be spectacular.
Well, I guess all of you would be considered millennials. So probably too young to have actually experienced, no doubt have read about the pattern in the history of elections in Guyana. Come election time, you get parties just coming out of the ground like mushrooms, and then they don't do particularly well, wither and die. Why do you believe, Asha, that the new movement is going to be any different? Given that you're a young woman, you've got to think about raising family, got your profession to follow, and trying to blend that and with a political life. How are you going to manage?
So, first of all, to answer this question, I like to make it known the intention was never politics. But seeing what has been going on in Guyana, we had no choice. Because we came to the realization that in order to get a real change, improvement in Guyana, that we needed to do this. Of course, there are a lot of small parties that are coming up, but we're different. Why are we different? First of all, nobody here has baggage. I've said it before. There is no washed up politician sitting before you here. We haven't come from any of the other parties. This is a group of young people, young professionals who have come together to make it work. Apart from that, we have great support. You would be amazed at how many young people call us every day to join our movement because they believe that the youth are the future, just like we do.
What's the telephone number they can get you on? What are they calling you on?
So we have our cell phones, which
Uh-huh.
is GTNT 647-3000, and we have digital, which is 660-1239, and we also have an office phone, which is 225-1239 as
Where's
well.
your office located?
So we have an office located at Durban Street, Workmanville.x that is, so that is between Hardina Street and Loisero, 5 buildings east of the First Assemblies of God Church. And let me add a bit to that question there. So these parties you said have been coming up and they've been withering, right? It's a long fight, it's a big fight you have to put up. But you see, we young people, if you look at those parties, it's been mostly, I wouldn't want to use the word
Again?
elderly. It's guys that have been there
Been
and
there, the history.
their history is there. And basically what we're about is we're definitely going to be staying throughout because we intend to be a pressure group, inside or outside. Okay? So it's for the people and it's always been for the people.
Just to add to the political parties emerging, right? The Constitution of Guyana speak about youth being involved in the discussion of the country. The Constitution in the preamble states that the future of Guyana belongs to the youth. Article 10, it states that the formation of political parties and their operations are guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And Article 13 states that the need of for inclusive inclusive democracy. Right? So the formation of political parties is a constitutional right of every Guyanese. They could do it whenever they want, 2 days before the election, a year before the election, 5 years before the election.
But it has to be meaningful. It's not just
I
because
know,
because you have a right.
I know, but you have a right as a Guyanese to be involved in the national discussion of the country. Right? So I just want to highlight the point. Because a lot of people, they see the two main political parties going at it, racial voting, partisan politics all the time, and they become disillusioned with politics. And they don't want to get involved in the political process. and they forgot that a number of our ancestors died for this right to take part in politics. Our ancestors couldn't vote before, right? People had to suffer for this right. So are you going to throw that away, or are you going to exercise your franchise? If you know that there is no political party that represent your views, then you're free to form your own pressure group, get people that think like you, and let your voice be heard in the public.
Well, that is noble.
Yes.
That is good. That's commendable. But if one wanted to be cynical, challenging, I don't think. I think it would be fair to say, none of you has really taken part publicly in any of the critical issues that have faced our country for the past 10, 15, 20 years. In terms of writing letters, making public contribution, no doubt you've made private contribution, no doubt about that. But so to come at this time, you'd have to convince the electorate, look, this is not just another opportunistic group of young people, albeit well-intentioned, albeit very decent, albeit very educated. But they're just coming out because they want to be elected.
All right.
How do you deal with that kind of... And I've set out some propositions. You've not been known to take any public position on any of the challenges which have faced our country.
Well, I have been involved in the People's Village movement in the Diamond Grove area. We have campaigned in the local government election the last time. I campaigned as an independent candidate. And we ran on the issues of security in the community, for the community, jobs. Also, I am the chairman of the doctor's branch of the Jarson Public Hospital for the GPSU. And we have been fighting issues regarding the improvement of the health sector, issues regarding doctors and nurses and pharmacists' conditions and their pay. And also we've been fighting for improvements in the lives of the patient so they could get proper medication, so that they could get proper beds and so on when they come to the hospital, so they can have materials. Right, so we have been involved as unionists. We've been involved at the community level, fighting for certain things. We've been involved in our private groups, right? And so we're not just coming on the scene, right? So we have a relatively long history of doing things.
But Gerald, let me talk your strength and your claim about your role in the trade union movement. You have seen this government and past government, this government as well as past governments, assault the principle of free collective bargaining. You've not challenged this notion publicly.
Well, I'm part of the union that has challenged that notion. All right, I cannot make statements on behalf of the union.
You can make statement on your own behalf, though.
There's the prerogative.
And you can do it now as the new movement.
Well, yeah, so we could do it now, but prior to that, that's why we form a political movement, so we could have a platform to speak out against certain things. Right? And the unions, they have been saying that they are not honoring collective bargaining, and I hold a position as well as a member of the union.
But holding a position is one thing. Is doing something about it, trying to change it and say,
No.
look, we will no longer accept this.
No.
Until you start, if you're going to form a movement, look what the movement is. Look at how nobody wants Hong Kong necessarily to be replayed here.
No.
But if you have to fight for your rights, you're talking about the preamble, you're talking about the articles of the Constitution. That's a right.
I know. So, to go back to fighting for rights, as chairman of the doctor's branch, in our representation of doctors and nurses, I don't know if you heard earlier this year that the health sector was about to strike. You heard the news?
I think I did.
All right, we are about to strike for our rights. and the government came and the Jarson Public Hospital Corporation, and they basically formed committees. After they addressed the issue, they formed committees to get down to the problems of this thing. So we are there advocating not only in voice, but we were also mobilizing for action on the ground, and that's what brought about the discussion. With
Asha, what about you? What is your claim to the electorate? Look, I'm new. I don't have baggage, but at the same time, I've got credentials. I've got a claim to say you really ought to trust me.
Well, first of all, we need to appreciate that we have formed this movement. This has given us a voice. For example, we're here tonight as the new movement, speaking out for what we believe in. I believe that self-recommendation is no praise. However, I'm a volunteer.
No, I wasn't asking you to recommend yourself. I'm simply asking you to describe what you might have done.
I volunteer my time every day, Sunday to Sunday. I do medical outreaches. I work with the Lions Club of Bel Air. I am a guest at Rotaract Georgetown. Everywhere that I could have fit myself in to help an individual, I have put myself there. Growing up as a child, I always found there was a need to do something for somebody else. Even being a doctor is not about me. When I give medication, when I see a patient, when I listen, is that about me? It has nothing to do with me. They can tell you. We see people every day and we know what they go through. Before a patient can tell us their finger is hurting, we need to hear about their family, their situation at home, what the politics is doing to them. Every issue that they face, they tell us. So we are very well aware of what is happening.
You still didn't answer my question.
What-
But that's fine. Josh, what about you?
Well, for me, I am 22 years old. Well, 23 years old recently, and I've been not so much into the political realm as of like about 2 years ago.
What about your
So-
student days?
My student days in the schools itself, I was class representative, part of the student body and student council, trying to get better for my students. And even on to today, we got better by getting our graduation ceremony at the Marriott. Right? So we're doing things there. Other than that, for the past 2 years, I've been on my Facebook page and a few others that I've created, such as Police the Police, whereby we look for where there are issues going on within the police organization, and then we highlight these issues and we recommend solutions and we recommend how to go forward with these issues. Other than that, I've been following this debacle with the oil sector and the energy sector, and I've been highlighting all these issues as on my Facebook profile as an activist there. Other than that, writing letters to the editorial, these things are, I haven't done them to say, but I've been doing it on Facebook, you can say, which is another platform than the newspaper. In addition to that, I've been working with some youths in my village. Sports is a big
Which is
part.
that village?
Industry. So sports is a huge part of where I come from. And one of the sports we're trying to implement right now is martial arts, which we are offering free martial art classes to the village people there, extend it into Pleasant, Sophia. We're trying to get these kids out, work with them, show them that, hey, you can have a future in sports, and we're building toward that to show them how this future can become a reality.
You all work at the Georgia Public Hospital Corporation?
I work at the Jarson Public Hospital.
I'm at Sophia Health Center.
I'm waiting for internship.
Waiting for internship. Is there any? Is there in your group other persons from the health sector that is part of this new movement?
Well, yeah,
Yes.
part of the group we have, yes, a few doctors and much more so nurses as well are in the movement itself.
Why this focus on the health sector? Is that purely accidental? And how does it spread out? We talk about Toria and Durga. He has been associated with the rice sector in particular. So why is there a broader mix and more representative presentation of society in your leadership core?
Well, this is, first of all, we want to make it known that we are a youth movement. We just happen to be wearing stethoscopes
And scrubs.
but
It just happened to be that.
and scrubs.
We're youths.
Right? We are a youth movement. We attract all different types of youth. African, Afro, Guyanese youth, Amerindians, Indians, all types of professions. Right? Economists, sociologists, right?
Psychologist.
Psychologists, everybody.
Business
Right? So we don't
people.
want to be labeled as a doctors movement. We're not that. We are a youth movement, and we also work with the older folks in society as guidance
Advisors,
and
counselors.
advisors, counselors, because we don't disregard the experience and of the elder persons.
Now, okay, what is it that has brought you together? What would you say are the 3 or 5 essential issues that have brought you all together? What do you think? How would you answer that, Asha?
So, the first issue for me was racism. Nobody that's sitting before you here supports it. However, historically, politics have always been about the Indians or the blacks voting against each other. And quite frankly, we're tired of it because we're young people. We don't see race. We see people, we see policies, and we see ideas. That was the first thing for me that attracted me to this group, because when you're with other people, you hear, oh, well, you're APNU, you need to go with this set of people. You go to the PPP side, you're this race, you need to go with that set of people.
So race was one. What else? What are the others?
The ideology,
Mm-hmm.
meaning, of course, we have oil right now, but the focus is not on oil. We focus on agriculture. We feel that's an important part. Agriculture, technology. We love the idea of hemp, which is a young people thing. We believe that it could bring Guyana out of poverty. And those are 3 of my main issues.
Well, added to that, economic liberation for Guyana.
What does
Right.
that mean?
Meaning that we are currently seeing the model being pushed, right? Is let us bring foreign direct investment into Guyana, let them invest, give them the country, let them invest, and let the money trickle down to the average Guyanese person. We don't support that. We want to put the means of production into the hands of the Guyanese people. We want to put the resources into the ownership of the Guyanese people. Right? For example, in natural resources, we want to operate state-owned mining companies, but not in the sense of the government.
You know the history of state-owned mining company in this country.
Let us examine it. not in the bureaucracy running it, but we want to give workers shares, give the Guyanese people shares in these mining companies. Also allow the workers to have representation at the board level, right? So that they can manage and direct the company, right? We want to empower the Guyanese people, put money in their pockets in that way. So when the profits are reaped, they get dividends and they can spend it, right? So we got different ideologies on how to create wealth. We don't want to, this country is too rich for us to be running to the IMF, the World Bank, every time for loans that enslave us economically. We are currently, this generation is currently paying back the loans of the 80s or the 70s and all those times. We don't want to put future generations in that trap. So what we want to do is capitalize on the remaining natural resources that we have in this country, put it in the hands of the people so that we could pay for our projects, so we could pay off our national debt with the proceeds from that resource. We basically want to turn our primary natural resources into tertiary products through industrialization.
Well, let me take you up on that in the context of objective number 3,
Okay.
to promote economic liberation of Guyana. This is one of the 9 objectives of the new movement. What do you mean by to promote economic liberation?
Okay. Well, we need to pay off the debt of Guyana. All right. That is the only way that this country could be free. All right. And
Well, how big is the debt?
it's about over $1 billion.
That's not a hell of a lot for a country.
But compared to to our
No, the measure, where how great and burdensome a debt is measured by the debt, the ratio
Debt
of
to-
debt
to GDP.
to service.
Mhm.
What is your debt service?
Mhm.
Do you see our debt service being unnecessarily high? I don't.
And additionally, what does that translate to for the average Guyanese person? Economic liberation. It certainly is not a nurse working paycheck to paycheck. It's not a doctor working 24 hours on call receiving $1,800. It's not super cleaners not having any money during the year, during months, couple months of the year. It translates. We want everyone to have a living wage in Guyana, so that you could earn your basic needs and have something to put up for entertainment, for advancing yourself academically and otherwise. Right? That's what economic liberation boils down to at the level of the person.
Well,
but nationally, you must be out of debt. The country must be out of debt and have surplus that we could tap into if we need.
I can't recall of any country that is out of debt. It might be out of debt as a net
Mhm.
situation, but you can have money in the bank, but you could also have debt, because you could have different financing strategies for different investment initiatives. But I want to take up liberation. Do you see, and Josh, maybe you can help him on this one, do you see the present model of exploitation of our petroleum resources as imprisoning us, that you would want to use the word liberating? Is it the opposite what takes place now? Is it the opposite of liberation? Is liberation the answer to what is taking place?
Well, definitely liberation would be that aspect of what's going on now with the the petroleum, I say, oil and gas industry, taking us at a whole heap of cash and just saying, hey, you'll have to pay back $500 million at the end of this amount of period, right? And from that now, who's going to have to pay that back? It's going to be grandchildren and children, either from me or from you. Right? We're going to have to pay that back because that's what the contract says.
Well, it's more than one contract. I know we all, as we discuss the petroleum sector, we think of the SO exploration and production contract, petroleum agreement with Trotman, to his great shame, practically gave away.
Yes, sir.
But does the new movement advocate the renegotiation or the abrogation of these oil contracts?
Definitely.
Which one?
We have seen.
Yeah, continue.
Is it
sir.
abrogation mean I'm ignoring it?
Well,
Or are you saying, look, let's sit around the table?
I believe
There are serious weaknesses in these agreements.
there you go. So the loopholes. I believe there is a stability clause within the contracts, which disenfranchises us from actually going back there and renegotiating the entire contract. But what we can do, as we learn from our mistakes, contracts are going to have to come up again, with which we can identify these loopholes and fill the gaps and make sure that we get a better deal for our nation. And
Well-
that's the contract Mr. Trotman signed with such a stability clause, disenfranchising us.
Well, if the stability clause is allowed to stand. It means that if SO, Hess, and Sinnock Nixon, because they're all parties to, to that June 2016 agreement, if that agreement is allowed to stand in its present format, it means that for the next 40 years, roughly 40 years, no government, including any government led by the New Movement or of which the New Movement is a party, no government can pass any legislation that prejudices the parties to that oil contract.
Yes.
Now that's a denial of democracy.
Indeed. And what's sorry, I think, well, I didn't, I was thinking about it, and I know the host usually doesn't get asked questions, but what do you think about taking it to the international courts?
Well, I don't think it needs to go to the international court. I think you can go to your own court. That's always the first thing you do.
I think we got to find a way where it violates the laws.
Well,
if they're
listen,
and we could make an argument that it violates the law in this way, that way, and that
well,
way.
our constitution says Parliament shall make laws for the peace, order, and good government of the country. That's what you have. That's what democracy is about. What this contract has done, it has placed
Cut us out.
those persons above the law.
Cut
It
us out
says
completely.
you as a legislative body cannot make any law, no matter how much it's in the interest
For the people.
of the country. You cannot make a law that adversely affects me. Now, is the New Movement prepared to say that it will make representation, it will go out on the streets, it will support any attempt to have the stability clause, for example, set aside?
We
Most
have the
definitely.
political will to do it. And we will support all sectors of the country that want to see the change happen. We are not the professionals in that regard, but we have the political will to do it, and those who want to make the change could gather with us and let us make the change.
I'm even thinking about it, planning to go in front of Exxon, hold up a sign.
Apart
What
from
happened
that,
with this 1 million barrel of impurities? What impurities? Explain to me what's going on, Exxon. 1 million barrel of impurities. Just go stand in front there. But if I get shot, I get shot. We know how it goes.
Maybe your doctor friends will be there.
Yeah, quick.
We hope it don't come to that.
Yes,
So-
Asha, you were about to say?
I'm saying apart from that, we have experts in the area that when the time comes would advise us on the way forward towards that stability
But why haven't they
clause.
done that yet?
Because before we could take that stand, we need to get into position to take that stand.
You as an individual have a right to take such a stand.
Well, I'll join Josh at the front with my sign.
No, I appreciate these guys who are putting the stickers on their cars. I really want to make some contact with them as well. The 2% versus 15%.
I think
appreciate that.
that's Nigel Hines,
I
which
appreciate
incidentally,
it.
who incidentally is a prime ministerial candidate
Change Guyana.
of Change Guyana.
Right.
What's your view of that party and its economic programs seem to have as a centerpiece the more incentives to the business community,
Well, what
job
are fo-
creation. Where do you stand in relation to not only that party but citizenship initiative, for example, which is going after the same cohorts of voters that you're going after, the young people?
Well, the thing is with the first of all, Change Guyana, their economic platform is based on a lot of tax exemptions and tax breaks and decreasing.
How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, we did have a meeting with them. Mr. Bell did invite us, and we went over to talk with him. And from that meeting, that's what we got from that
And he declared in the
discussion.
public. He declared
And he did
publicly.
declare publicly
Yes.
that's mostly what he's mostly about, right?
Do you support that approach to economic
Um,
development?
It needs a bit more studying, and some more studying needs to be done to it to implement such vast, as what he's talking, such vast tax cuts and decreases in the taxes. But some of them I can offhand say, especially for the motor vehicle taxes, I can offhand say that one is good. So I support that one.
He wants to give incentives to business coming into Guyana through tax cuts and so on. And hopefully, when they invest their money and make profits, they trickle down that money to the rest of us.
Trickle-down economics has never been successful.
No, so we don't support it. Right? We see it as a form of exploitation. But what we are proposing is further to the left of that. We, as I told you earlier,
Well, that's not left.
want to put we want to put the means of production and the ownership of the resources into the hands of the Guyanese people, right? So that in the form of shares and these things, so they could get dividends from these things, right? So they can empower themselves in that way, right? Instead of that will put money into their pockets instead of tax cuts and all these things.
In addition to that, trust me, we're not disenfranchising the private sector. We are supporting them because basically we need to keep that economic stability and to have a vibrant economy through the private sector as well as these other sectors from the state in order to have a great social welfare system. So trust me, the private sector, don't get us wrong. We're not going to be taking your stuff from you. We're going to be helping you along the way and implementing zones with which you can prosper as well.
But
Yeah,
look,
let me just add. Yeah, we're not taking away. Telling you you must implement this model. This is the way that we plan on doing things as a government. But we will be giving incentives to those companies that want to follow that model of doing things. All right. So if you cannot follow that model, we are going to give the tax cuts to our farmers. We're going to give increases to teachers, to people in the health sector, engineers, instead of giving it to these multi-billion dollars multinationals.
but listen,
If they don't follow that model.
where you are,
Uh-huh.
the public hospital itself, the health center. Where are you, Josh?
Well, you can say GPHC as well.
JPSC. You would have seen some of the worst effects of poverty. Poor people, lots of people will tell you, whether it's true or not, and I hope it's not true, and I'm sure that with you people it wouldn't be true, but if you want decent health service, you really have to think twice before you go to Georgetown Hospital. You see some real poverty.
Yes, sir.
How do you see the new movement addressing poverty? How do you, as individuals, how have you been thinking? Because this wide gap, you got some people with billions of dollars, and others really can't get a meal on their table, can't send the children to school. I know one parent in the Mahaika area who rotates their children's attendance at school because you can't afford to send all three of the children together. How do you deal with such a situation? How does the new movement plan to address such a situation?
So first of all, what we want to create is a social system where from the time you're born to the time you die, you're covered by the government. Job creations, of course, has been a big topic among all parties, including us. But if you address poverty itself, the first issue is nobody's paid enough. I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to live at least a middle-class life. But I'm still below the line. I would call myself poor in a matter of speaking, but it's true.
You will make Gerald and all think he's poor.
The salaries that our people receive, be it from the nurses, teachers, doctors, drivers, construction worker, they are nowhere near what our people deserve. We do believe that a significant salary increase is needed. That would contribute towards the poverty. You speak of taxes. I know it has been saying we should have tax cuts on vehicles, on cell phones. Have you ever spoken to a mother who has gone to a supermarket? She picks up a pack of milk, holds a tin, and decides, I can't afford this tin of milk. And when she gets to the cashier, the difference she paid in VAT could have given her that tin of milk for her children. Those are some of the things we're looking at. The people themselves on the ground. What can benefit them?
I'm not sure of VAT and milk. I thought milk was an exempt product.
No, it's not.
I wouldn't argue, but I really do believe so.
In
But-
addition, if I may, so in addition to this poverty, Dr. Ash spoke a bit more the economic side.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at poverty, when you see where these poverty families are from, if you look at their history and their background, education is lacking, and the social welfare or the
Mhm.
social system is lacking. Not in the response of giving them monies or giving them monies every month, sorry, but in the response of whereby they have a counselor or someone coming and mentoring these kids to step them out of it.
Mm-hmm.
People usually forget them. So what we're going to be advocating for is to working close with the NGO so that these guys on the ground, the NGOs are very important to a nation, and we see that and we will work with them closely so that they can go on these grounds in these areas that are poverty stricken, provide workshops, provide teaching to the children, mentoring, career guidance so that you can be educated. Once you're educated, you teach a man, you teach that child how to fish, and he'll be fishing for life, right? And that social program that we're looking at and we've developed is one that's going to be a major impact in this poverty stricken
If I may,
areas.
I may add to what my colleagues are saying. We also want to develop hemp, right? Because we see that as something that could bring a miracle to Guyana, right? Because the hemp.
You believe there's a silver bullet to solving a country's problems?
There's no silver bullet. It's hard work. It's good ideas could solve the problems. Unity of the people could solve the problems. But hemp, we believe particularly, could provide a good platform to raise the level of income for the people, provide jobs for people. Because the hemp plant itself provides thousands of products that could be made from soap, rope, hair
Clothes.
products.
Rope, soap, dope.
No,
Careful, Richard.
hemp is not dope.
I
Not
know.
even
It's not
close.
So I was wondering he was going in
I get you, but hemp is not dope.
So
Trust me.
we believe that could transform. It could provide a lot of jobs. It could provide much cheaper housing for people if we can make hempcrete in Guyana. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess if it was that easy, other countries might have been doing it a long time
So,
ago.
just to add,
it's been illegal in
we have
in
an
other
expert.
countries.
We have the experts. As soon as the regulatory law is signed, they come in, they test our soil. Our people get those contracts to plant it. We're not bringing in anybody from outside to do it.
But I want to suggest this to you. Now, it's not my role. I'm here to ask you questions. But you talk about the poverty you see. You're a trade unionist, plus a medical doctor. Surely, a major role you can play is what is a healthy food basket for a typical family. Two partners, 2 or 3 children. What is a typical healthy monthly food bill for that person? That's the kind of work people should be. You have the expertise. You have the particular role. You ought to be saying to the government, look, this you're paying, you're offering nurses, you're offering even doctors. It's dooming them
Microeconomics
to poverty.
Yeah. The union,
That's the kind of thing you should be doing. Because I think if there's nobody, not among all the groups that have arisen recently, would have the credibility on the issue of poverty as you people would have. And I think it's something you should really do. Because our country cries out for it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
You talk about hemp. If we were to fix these oil contracts, because think about it, we have on a per capita basis the highest petroleum resources in the world
Yes, sir.
per capita.
Yes, sir.
So
That's true.
you talk about becoming the Dubai of the Caribbean. Some people will criticize you for it, Dubai and the human rights records and all of those things, and how they got there. But surely, given in 2026, we should have at least 1 barrel of oil per day
Per person.
per person. That's a huge amount.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is the revenue hardly comes together, and you hear this foolishness from the IMF. Tell you, but you're gonna be the fastest growing economy. No nonsense.
Nonsense indeed.
That growth doesn't come here.
Goes out.
Right.
So I really do believe that is something that you people should set yourself. And whether you win or lose, because whether you win or lose electorally, you can win by contributing to a better Guyana
Definitely.
and by enabling people out of poverty could be your greatest and most indelible contribution to the future of this country.
Definitely. I'm just saying, at the end of the day, we're all Guyanese, huh? We're all going to be living here, and we're all going to be prospering here. So, win or lose, we're here to stay, as I said earlier, and we're going to be pushing as a pressure group. And as you said, we're going to be implementing our organization is going to go on to implement some of these very ideas that we have, and we're going to be pushing for it, so that poverty can be addressed, so that education system can be addressed, etc.
Look, you mentioned that you were called in by citizens, by the Change Guyana for discussion. Was it that they offered you to come on board on their party?
Well, the thing is, we're open to dialogue.
No, but you met with them. You had a dialogue with them.
All small
We're
parties
reaching
meet and have dialogue.
See where we have common grounds.
Yeah, but
We're Guyanese at the end of the day, huh?
we are Guyanese, but maybe we also. Everybody wants to be a presidential candidate and a prime ministerial
But that's where
candidate.
the ego tripping must stop. The ego trippers
It's
must
not about
be filtered.
positions or persons, it's about policies and what is the change we're trying to bring.
The thing is, Mr. Ramjitan and the APNU are courting right now to have positions. Who's going to be PM, who's going to be where, what. But what we're putting forward is that positions don't matter. Let's put forward an agenda. What are some of the programs I can put forward to the His Excellency David Granger right now, me being Ramjitan, saying, I have these programs here, put these programs in place, and we're going to move forward like this, and we're going to push them with our ministers. Not for position, not for power. Programs of what's going to benefit the Guyanese people. That's what it should be.
Right now, when I heard them say they're at 7 to 30, immediately I thought of insulin. They're diabetic. They're the diabetes of Guyana.
It's rotting us, huh?
Is there a special significance to 7 to 30?
Yes.
So
Was it?
insulin.
It's a type of insulin.
Type of insulin is used.
That's
treat
used for
diabetic
treat
patients.
diabetes.
Okay.
And we know the harmful outcome of diabetes, right?
I think so.
Blindness is
Yes.
one of the very common ones. So
Mhm.
blindness steps in, and these guys seem to be blind with the Alban tract. Kidneys go failing, so we
Yes,
can't
yeah.
filter. These
Yeah.
guys are not filtering corruption, and they're not enforcing properly. Then the limbs go, the nerves are gone.
But
So the nerves are not there, you don't feel, so the limb gets chopped off. So something's gonna have to happen.
but since we brought up diabetes, right? Hypertension, heart disease, right? Stroke, kidney failures. Every day we go to work, we see hundreds of these patients at our clinics, right? So if we continue like this, I think the last number was 50,000 diabetics in Guyana,
Yeah.
right? And climbing.
Mhm.
If we continue like this, we would not have the human resource necessary to transform this country. So something definitely needs to happen with regards to chronic diseases in Guyana.
And
And-
even the money spent on these patients
Yes.
can be put into other places once we decrease it, huh?
Yeah, so we
all
need
these needs to be
we
coordinated.
need to start developing a more healthier population. We are proposing in our roadmap to prosperity an increase in the
That's like the good life.
in the taxes of increasing the taxes on alcohol, on cigarettes, and
That's the poor man only pleasure to it.
well,
That's part of the problem with poverty.
Yeah.
we need to increase the taxes so that if you continue to smoke at least or
I
drink,
think you need to increase some taxes across the board.
at least if you continue to smoke and drink,
Because part of taxation, you see, I don't think
Mm.
in all this debate about give more tax relief and concessions,
Mm.
I don't think people realize that taxation is a tool,
A tool.
a social tool
Right.
as well as a fiscal tool.
Right.
It helps to redistribute
And
the resources.
right, developing countries has been using taxes on Coke,
Absolutely.
Pepsi, and the soft drinks, so that the sugar consumption decreases. Right.
But you see, I think since the economic recovery program adopted by the PNCR, inherited by the PPP and continued by them, and just carried out this right wing kind of trickle down Washington consensus type of politics and economics, nobody has looked to see what in fact is happening to our economy and to the poor people. How is this pie that is being created in fact divided? I want to turn to this point. You ask people to vote for end to corruption, and you refer to lots of page numbers. Page 70. Is there a document that the average Guyanese can access to deal with this end to corruption? And can you tell me, what do you mean by this end to corruption? What kind of corruption we talking about here?
Anyone?
Any?
I've been speaking a lot, so Dr. Forde.
okay.
Asha hasn't said much.
So, end to corruption. Yes, it is in our roadmap to prosperity. That is our manifesto, just that people can know. They can find it on our webpage and access it. Corruption, there are many levels of corruption that we tackle. To discuss that would take hours, but just on a general basis.
Are we not talking about Jordan Hospital here?
No, we're not. And I wouldn't go there.
Would you, on a serious note, do you think the accusations that were made about corruption in the health sector and Jordan Hospital, do you think there was any merit, any truth in those accusations?
So, seeing that there are so many accusations that were made, I know every story has two sides, and I'll say it again, I will not get into that because I was not there.
No, but you don't have to be there. But you are there now. And well, let me ask
the
somebody who's here,
drug
Dr.Gerald
stuffer.
Forde. What is your view on corruption
Well, in the health sector,
in the health sector?
we have been plagued by corruption in the health sector for a number of years, right? Stemming from the last
You cut out to be a politician.
from the last government, right? We were hearing about overpricing of certain drugs and materials, and people getting cutbacks, and all these things, and it came over into this administration as well. So, what should we as Guyanese do about corruption? We want to chastise the person who bust the chain on the at Starbrook Market, but as I was telling my friend earlier, just before we came here, corruption is like a rich man, got on a nice suit and so on, like yours, taking,
No, you come here to accuse me, man.
or a politician or whatever, going into your pockets just the same way, but wait till you take you more, right? But he's in the office, he's in a nice AC room, and nobody chastises him. So we need to bring an end to that because he's stealing from us generally. So the mechanisms we put forward to stop corruption We need to have a court specially set aside to deal with that. We need to train our prosecutors if necessary. We need to bring in prosecutors. We need to train the police force and give them the necessary tools.
But if corruption is a criminal offence, why can't it be dealt with in the criminal courts?
Well,
Corruption is there as well.
No.
I think the main word is accountability. Seeing that accountability meaning that yes, these things are happening, but nobody's standing up to say that a stop needs to be put to it, and that's what's been happening. Because there are major cases where the prosecutor doesn't turn up, so everybody walks free, and that's what's been happening.
But I don't know, I think Guyanese need to come together across the political aisle and demand proper governance and accountability from their politicians. Right? Because you're seeing the APNU supporters, they are saying, right, some of them, when PPP was in power, they say, oh, you thief so much, you do all that. Now, when the shoe is on the other foot, they don't say anything about it. Likewise, the PPP supporters, they keep quiet when that happened, and on the other foot now they talk out about it. So Guyanese need to come to a consensus that we are not for corruption, no matter which political party does it, and we need to hold these people accountable, and we need to put them behind bars if necessary and make examples of them, because stealing from the treasury is stealing from all of us.
Yep, hashtag we pay them.
Right? So we cannot be partisan about it. We cannot be easy on it. We need to call a spade and deal with it decisively. That's the only way we're going to uproot it from the society.
Let's be realistic. We got about 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes.
Great discussion.
What are your chances of even getting a single seat in the National Assembly? And what's your strategy for getting the seats? What do you think realistically you will achieve?
You can't give a strategy.
No, you that's why you come and play and talk. You come and play and talk to be tested.
Here's what. We know who our targets are. We know where they are. And we know how we're going to get them. Marketing is the key to selling anything. And this is now a brand. Once you have that brand and you have the good marketing strategy behind you, it can be accomplished. Once you know your target population.
No, I'm not talking what is in the realm of possibility. I'm talking about realistic likelihood.
Right.
Given that every political party that, and I've tried to plain talkers tried to give new parties a voice, a forum, but they all say the same thing. They all can't be right, can they?
Right.
What is your assessment of what is the floating vote in this country? You know, the APNU plus AFC locked down a significant segment. The APNU has, in whatever incarnation, it has always had just over 40%. I think it fell once. The PPP is about the mid-40s, early to mid-40s. What is the realistic? What is your assessment? You're professionals. What work have you done to say what is a realistic target of voters that you can go after?
Well, for us, from the works we've done on the ground, people are responding to us quite well. And we know that there are about, from our assessment, a rough average of about 15,000 persons who are on the fence and who we can gather and who we can convince them to vote for us. New voters as well are among that.
So that's about 2.5 seats.
Or more.
We're actually...
And that's from one region, I can say.
What we notice is that a lot of people are tired of what has been going on, just like we were to step forward. So even though they had support in the past, because of what is happening right now, it has shunned the voters from them, and that's where we came in as a third force.
These polls online, they're very Stalinist. You can't continue to tell a lie 10 times and then it's going to stick and become truth, right? So these polls, we have to watch them. And
as I said, you're all millennials. But one of the tendencies, one of the practices in Guyana is that you could have all kinds of disappointments being expressed by the PPP base during an Indian administration, a PPP administration. But come election time, they vote traditionally. And the same.
Well,
So that's one of the challenges you've got to face. And I'm sure, I know Change Guyana has brought in expert strategists and so on. How do you plan doing it? And I think we got 1 minute more.
hey, well, as you said, we have some experts as well on our side.
We also have experts, and we're reaching out to the young people. As long as they know what they have, that they know they have what it takes to make a change, they've been coming forward. And we urge them to continue coming forward towards the new movement tonight.
Yes, Gerald?
Well, I would like to urge the Guyanese people to love God with all your mind, your heart, your strength, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. Don't let any political party or movement come to tell you that your brother is your enemy. We need to come together to build this country so that we could live in a prosperous state, and we can hand something of worth down to our children. So you should join the new movement, because we're about that.
So on that score, I say amen. And Dr.Asha Kisson, Dr.Josh, Kanhai, Dr.Gerald, Forde, thank you very much for appearing and playing Doc.
Hey,
Thanks
Good
for
luck
having us.
Thank
in
you,
the
sir.
upcoming elections whenever they are.
Thank you, sir.
Operators and viewers, thank you and good night, and I'll see you next week.